This is the Get Better Everyday podcast with Matt Gouget. Actionable advice from real life superheroes who, just like you, are in relentless pursuit of the best version of themselves. Whether you're just getting started or have been at it for years, my hope is that this podcast injects you with some positive energy to continue doing what brings you joy. Join me as I interview the best of the best in business, sports, and life. Let's grow together. All right. Matt Gouget, Get Better Everyday podcast. Excited to have Daniel Ramsey on today. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day, brother. I appreciate you. I guess to start off, let's just tell the audience who is Daniel Ramsey.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Pretty simple story. I grew up in a trailer park and saw business as my opportunity to get out and actually build a life of wealth. And so I was that strange kid on the school bus, selling candy in seventh grade. And it was kind of amazing. I got hooked because this kid, I had a Snickers. That was my drug of choice, so to speak. And, I never ate my supply. So I never ate the candy. I just sold it. But this one particular Friday, I was driving home and in the bus, and a kid said, "Hey, I want one of the Snickers." And I was like, "Dude, I only have one left. I can't. I'm going to eat this one. I can't." And he whips out a $20 bill. And I'm like, "Here," and back then you could get a Snickers for 25 cents. So, I got my butt off the bus and walked down to the corner store and bought another Snickers and walked home and took 1975 in my pocket. And honestly, I think at that moment, I knew I was going to be a salesperson and knew business was for me. And kind of, I feel really lucky in that I never had to worry about what I was going to do. I always knew that this was the path for me.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So started off selling Snickers, leaving a trailer park on a school bus, and tell folks a little bit about what you're up to today, because I know about Mod because it's a great company that locally here we happen to be in the same town. Everybody knows about it and is utilizing it to find time in their day and scale their business and whatnot. So tell us a little bit about where you are today, and then maybe we'll fill in the gaps between trailer park and Mod.
Yeah. Well, my Outdesk, we're a virtual assistant company. We're the largest in the marketplace. We have 2,100 people, and think of us like a staffing company to help you grow. Like most business CEOs or entrepreneurs, they're like, "I just need the right people." And that's kind of what we do, is we help businesses find the talent they need to grow and scale. And yeah, I really love it. I mean, what I do is look for opportunities. I look for businesses in the US and Canada that need talent. And then we look for talent that need opportunity, like they need full-time employment. And we just put those people together. And it's been a really rewarding, fun 16 years. I've got to make every mistake you can imagine. So we could go all over the place in this podcast. We wrote a book about scaling your business with Mod Virtual Professionals. So if you're listening, you can jump on our website and grab that. And honestly, I've got the opportunity to feel that that first journey to $1 million is a big deal. The next journey to 10 million is awesome. And right now we're on the journey from 50 million to 100 million in revenue. And so just having that opportunity and serving so many different clients has been really fun.
Yeah, I'm going to pick something out of what you said, because in a lot of conversations I have with business owners and entrepreneurs, they talk about failure and having different types of failure. Like you said, you sit in a unique seat where not only do you run your business, but you get to partner with businesses and have kind of a sideline view of what's going on in their business, and you can get in there and fix it. So I guess, what would you tell people, even the smallest of businesses have a vision and they run into things that are preventing them to get to the next level? I talk to my personal coach a lot about like trying to get to the next mistake as fast as I can, because then I learn from it and I course correct and I get better. What, from your perspective, in your own business or in businesses that you viewed, is the best way to go about scaling, growing, mistakes, and getting through some of those barriers?
Well, I mean, a guy like me, I'm always going to say talent. And the reality is, like, as a CEO of my company, and really every conversation that I've had with a real CEO. So if you're a you own a 200,000 or 300,000 construction business or insurance brokerage, that's a really high paying job. You just happen to own your own schedule, but it's still a job, right? But anytime I talk to a company that's a 10, 20, 50, 100, we've got a lot of billion-dollar customers. Every single time I talk to them, they say that their number one concern is talent. And it's like getting the right people and having them do the right things and then serving their clients in the right way. So, it always comes down to who's on your team. And I think as you're thinking about growing and scaling, it's a combination of what you said, which is learning from your mistakes and course correcting and then continuing down the path, having the right people on the team, and then sticking with a goal long enough to actually accomplish it. That's the wildness. And I'm fortunate. I'm in a bunch of groups with other entrepreneurs, and I've gotten some seasonality with it, meaning I've seen 10 years, like the same guys, 10 years. And there are people who stay and kind of never plateau, really. They get to their limit and then they stay at their $1 million or $10 million business. And then there's guys that I'm like, I never expected that, but this guy has really grown and scaled. And I think the one thing is just learning from your mistakes, having the right team member, and just never giving up. Those are the things.
Right. Yeah. I think that as I've grown and scaled my business, I've found the importance in the right people, the right people in the right seats. And with that, it's really truly the only way to scale, right? Because anybody, I started in mortgage and was growing a mortgage business. I'm going to get to a certain level where Matt can't be all things to all people and do all, we got to add somebody to help in this area, add somebody to help in that area. It's really cool. I want to try to maybe shift it to think about some folks that are closer to that Snickers bar as far as their business development, right? Some people might be earlier on in the path, and as much as I'd like to selfishly talk about myself, my own business, things I'm doing, when folks are just getting started, because I think that you probably even work with some businesses that are first launching. What are the important things for them to consider, maybe like the very first hire for people? Because I think that I'm around a lot of people that are at that level where they don't know any better. They've done a great job, but they hit a ceiling, their own personal capabilities. So maybe, whether it's a virtual assistant or whether it's an in-person hire, like that very first hire, what should somebody be looking at, thinking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wrote a book about this. So we call it
Right guy to ask.
Yeah, great timing. But we call it I, we, they. So in the I do it space, you're really learning about, what the marketplace needs, how to do your job, who your customers are, what your value proposition is. In the I do it, think about it like you're going to college and you're getting a doctorate and a master's, and maybe going to another school and getting and doing a thesis or something. There's a lot of things that you have to do in order to move from the I to the we. But if you figure out how to sell, I like to say revenue is like the air that we breathe. And a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'm gonna get one customer. And I made this mistake, by the way. When I first started in business, I'm like, I'm gonna do one customer a month. I'm gonna make a ton of money. Well, one quarter happened, like my June didn't close, my May didn't close, and so 3 months in a row, my one deal a month didn't close. I'm like, okay, well, shifting goals, I'm going to have 10 customers every month. So 7 close, and so, you have to remember in the I do it, you're learning your business, but the only thing that matters is really revenue. Like revenue cures all problems. It takes care of, the money issue, which most people have when you're in the I do it. So how am I going to generate revenue is the one thing. And then as you move to the we do it, it really becomes about systems and process. And you ask the question, like, what's your first hire? I don't think a first hire is a virtual assistant. I think a first hire is a CRM. So some system to keep all of your customers' information in, as well as maybe a system to, charge them, a system to follow up and deliver the work that you've agreed to do. So your first hire is always your tech stack. How am I going to do my job, right? And then after that, then you need people to do stuff for you. Whether it's administrative work, which was the first hire that I ever had. I hate paperwork. I love to meet Matts and talk to Matts and, be on stage and on camera. That's my favorite thing to do. I know how to do that really, really well. So, you start thinking through in the we do it, like, what's my highest and best use? Like, what are the things that I, as the business owner, am the only one in the business that I can do? Like, what are those things? Right. And typically they're still around revenue. They're around revenue, leadership, system and process stuff, understanding vision and direction. And so you start farming out stuff. But the mistake that people do in this, and this is a really big mistake, I say 90% of all entrepreneurs, fail. They'll create the checklist, they'll put together the SOP, and then they never train properly, or they don't show the person how to do the job, right? Like they're like, I'm really busy, so you just handle it. And then they don't know what to do because they've never done it before,
Right. Yeah.
And then the conversation is like, well, I have my assistant's okay, or he or she isn't, stepping up, or whatever the conversation is. And as a leader who knows and train thousands of people, you can kind of almost smell that. It's like commission breath, for a used car salesman, you can kind of smell them, right? It's leader breath, right? Blaming the person versus the, accepting responsibility. So in the we do it's, you're doing a lot of growth. It's the most painful piece of growing a business is the we do it. Because to your point, the whole point of this podcast, there's a lot of self-reflection and growth that has to happen.
Yeah. And that one really resonates with me. I feel like I'm pretty self-aware. So I'll dig in selfishly here. For somebody who's done a lot of the business and have specific skill sets around, people like and trust me. I've got the knowledge. I've got, quote unquote sales skills because, I don't have any problems talking to folks. I realized probably in year 5 or 6 that as I started to grow, I didn't have all the leadership skills it took, specifically to your point, on showing somebody exactly what you're looking for, right? Because it's more than just as a leader saying like, there's point B, we're at point A, let's go there, and then hope that they get there, right? And I've had plenty of failures around that where I reflect and I look back and go, you know what? The person was unsuccessful because I didn't set them up for success. If I would have helped build the roadmap, if I would have helped do that. So I guess what would your advice be to me specifically, right? As a leader who's trying to put all the right people in the right seats, prepare people for success. How do you do that? Especially like most folks, if they're wearing multiple hats, if they're doing multiple things, the busy excuse can get in your head, at least if it's not in your way. So how do you slow down to put the things in place so that you can scale?
Yeah, I love this. I lost $1 million. So I'm going to give you guys, and this might be a soundbite that you cut out, right? I lost $1 million. Congratulations, Daniel. Way to be dumb. So I didn't understand marketing at a high level when we were in the $20 million range. And at that time, I think we had like 700-800 people in total in the entire company. And so I hired a guy and I went through an interview process. And in the interview process, he's like, oh yeah, I know Paid, I know Marketo, which is our marketing platform. I know how to use these systems and I know how to tie them in with paid advertisement and social media. And I was like, wow, we are the luckiest company ever. I've got a guy who knows how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And so I think the challenge that you have is you read all these business books and they give this great advice. It's not the who, or it's not the how, but it's the who. And I think that's fantastic. But what they're leaving out in a big asterisk is you need to be able to lead somebody in their day to day and know what the outcome looks like and really what the path looks like. And then some, targets along the way. You've got to have a very hashed out plan for somebody. And I think there's 2 big mistakes that people make, especially us entrepreneurs, because we're crazy. Number one, I'm really busy, so I don't need to learn that. I'll just find somebody who can do it and pay them money and it'll all work out in the end. That just scares me. It's a recipe for failure. And then 2, they have never done it themselves. And so they don't understand how it works and they don't even understand the hard work. They can think about it, conceptualize the ideas of what it would have to happen, but because they don't have lived experience, by the way, we call that wisdom, like they've never lived that experience. They don't really know that experience. So, you can't, drive down a road and never have driven a car and expect to get to the other side. And that's what entrepreneurs constantly do. I heard this podcast, this guy, Matt, talking about it, and I'm going to go do it too, but that's just simply a mistake. So in the we do it's, the best thing to do is all of the stuff that you know how to do, all of the stuff that you have KPIs for, measurable like targets, everything that you already have documented or can easily put into a system and process. What you'd want to do is give that stuff away, because it's not your highest and best work, right? It's not the work that really will move the needle. Ask yourself that question, like, what's my highest and best use? What's the stuff that only I can do? And then everything else get off your plate. And that's when hiring a virtual assistant or other team members really can, make a difference, because you have a measurable number. I'll give you an example. Great salespeople are worth about $500 an hour. And if you think through, like, okay, well, if my time is worth $500 an hour, anything below that I can put into a system and process and then delegate down to somebody else, I should, so I can focus on prospecting or meeting customers or driving revenue for my business. And that's typically the miss for people, is they try to buy their way out, or they don't really know the path that they want to go down. And so they're kind of making it up as they go.
Yeah, I love that, dude. And I love the fact that like I'm learning something through this podcast and interviewing folks. I'm going to spotlight that real big for myself and for anybody else that it might help, that you want to know to a certain extent. And I've heard this too, where people say you're going to hire somebody to do something better than you can do it, right? So you might hire somebody who's better than you at marketing specific, but you at least have a working knowledge of what they're doing, what the goal is. And I recently talked to a coach about, somebody I'm onboarding, and not only being able to clearly lay out their path, but have 30, 60, 90-day measurables to know if they're walking down that path, right? And this is something that literally like 2 years ago, I didn't have these skills. And so I know that hopefully this reaches somebody and helps somebody where, you have to hire people to help you build and grow. But you also have to do it strategically. You have to have an idea of like, okay, I know how to measure if this marketing person is doing the right things and they're effective, and putting things in place where they've got the path. Along that path, they can execute it better than you could. And like you said, if you're a $500 an hour salesperson, they're executing it, and you're ideally paying them less than $500 an hour to do it. In your case, it cost $1 million, but
I want to finish up that story. What happened was the person who lied in the interview, a year later, we're sitting down and we're having a leadership team, and this person was part of our leadership team. He in that conversation said, I'm not really good at paid. We might want to hire an outsourced company to handle all of our paid advertising. And I was like, man, and it just landed. So I pulled up his interview, which was recorded. And then I went to the section where he said he was an expert and he had multiple years and ran millions of dollars of campaigns. And then I pulled up our conversation. So you just have to be really careful. I didn't have the knowledge or understanding in that marketing world to really create measurables that were clear. Like, he told me, hey, we're doing really well. And then I'd look at the revenue and I was like, man, he's saying we're doing really good, but our revenue is not going up. So something's missing, And the reality was I was just tired. And I remember that time of our business, it was a really difficult time. I was tired. I was starting a family. Our team was growing. Our business was taking off. And I thought, okay, easy button. He says he can do it. I'm just going to give it to him. And we ultimately ran about $1 million of paid advertising that went nowhere because it wasn't set up correctly and it wasn't measured correctly. And so, learn from me. Don't make that mistake.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's something that, today is really cool about being an entrepreneur, no matter what space you're in, is you get to look at, hear from, learn from anybody who's come in front of you and made mistakes and try to avoid those. I always enjoy it when somebody reaches out to me, because when I was starting off in mortgage, I reached out to somebody who was doing 4 times as much business as me. Then I 4x my business. I looked to somebody who's doing 4x of that. And there's always somebody who's seen it, done it, and you can learn from them. Don't make this mistake. And I think if nothing else to pull out of, these last 5 or 10 minutes of our conversation is, when you hire people and you're scaling, you want to have an idea of how you can measure whether that specific role has success or not. And I think it probably applies even more so to some of your virtual assistants, where with the right coaching, training, leadership, they can operate at a high level. But without that, it's going to be really hard to see results from them. So maybe speak to, like, specific to, your industry, which you're an expert in, is, taking a virtual assistant, plugging me into, a business that somebody has here in the United States, and what that looks like, the best outcomes you've seen versus some outcomes that weren't great.
Yeah, no, I mean, it all goes back to leadership. And at the beginning, we talked about I, we, they. As you make the transitions from I's and we's, those transitions are painful. And the we to they is probably the most painful one. And that's really where you're setting vision for your company. You're hiring leaders, and you're stepping out of production. And that stepping out of production and letting the business continue to grow, that's a massive transformation. It's a massive transformation, because in the we do it, you get to do the work with your people, meaning you're in the trenches with them. It's like if you're a contractor, you're swinging nails and you're out there building the thing. So you're watching it as you go up. In the they, what has to happen is you've got to create systems and processes. You've got to create, checks and balances within your business. You have to manage the downside and the upside of the business. And that is, you cross $1 million in revenue, right? So once you move to the they do it, you're typically doing $2 to $5 million in revenue, which is a huge deal. But to your other question, like, how would you use a virtual assistant as you're growing and scaling a business? I mean, my experience, I use them for every aspect: customer service, administrative work. Like, I hate paperwork. I'm not a paperwork guy. Project management, marketing, sales. I mean, they are capable folks. And I think the better question, and the question that I train our customers, is, hey, what do you need in your business right now to double? This is my favorite question to ask entrepreneurs. Like, if I held a gun to your head right now, Matt, and said, hey, if you don't double in 12 to 24 months, I'm going to pull the trigger. What would you need to start doing? What would you need to stop doing? And who do you need on your team right now in order to double or even triple your business? And then I pause. And if you're listening right now, pause this and write down, what do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? And who do you need on your team? Because it's totally possible in the next 12 months for you to double your business. Like, I've seen it. And when I say I've seen it, I've served, I think we're crossing 9,000 customers over 16 years, 9,000 people. So I've seen lots of businesses double consistently year over year over year. And they just simply go through this exercise of really analyzing self. Like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What does the business need? If you ask me one identifier to CEOs who scale and really do really well in business, it's that ability to self-reflect, course correct, learn new things, and continue to grow their business year over year.
I love it. I love all that stuff. Yeah, I think that, like, this whole thing lands with me because it's been, constant growth from, single loan officer to a couple team members to lead, and full transparency, I'm moving into the they, where, trying to build the self-sustaining team that is going to grow in my absence, while I'm out doing other stuff that's going to help propel the business, but I'm not actively involved in the day-to-day operations. So I like to use the analogy with folks too, that, like, if somebody comes as a client to Wendy's and they get great service and a great hot meal that's delicious, and they leave satisfied, they don't have to meet Dave Thomas to have a good experience, right? And so the same thing goes, people like, how the heck are you going to, do business with Matt, the mortgage guy? I never talked to Matt. Well, you don't have to talk to Dave. It can still be, to the Wendy's standard, it could be the Matt the mortgage guy standard on like what service they're going to expect. And so, all great stuff, man. I appreciate you. This is a great conversation. I think offline, I'm going to talk to you about a couple different ideas I have for my business with virtual assistants. Before I shut her down, I know in the chat, myoutdesk.com/scale. That'll be in the show notes. And that is that a link to the book?
Yeah, it's a link to our website and also our book. So the important thing is everything that we're talking about today is in the book. I, we, they, there's 6 stages to grow a multi-million-dollar business, and we outline them as well as what you have to do in each of those stages. Like I'm thinking of Matt, right? I'm like, okay, if you're moving to the they, the most important thing you can do is set vision right now. And like a vision that somebody will jump onto and their entire life's purpose is wrapped up in the company. And that's the only way moving to the they works. I have this friend, she's a local gal, and I asked her, hey, what's your core values of your company and what's your mission and tell me about your people and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, we're all just money hungry. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're all money hungry? She goes, yeah, we all want to make a lot of money together. And we're all really interested in doing that. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So my guess is you have a bad turnover rate. She goes, how'd you know? I'm like, well, when money is the goal, like you can't ask your employees to help you have them help you become rich, right? That's kind of it's just a weird thing. So you got to set great purpose and great vision, and that's how you win in the they do it space is through people and creating great vision. The other thing that I'd say about the book, which I really like, is we have a lot of systems around launching virtual assistants, like how to train, what their first day should be, the communication platforms, the common mistakes. I mean, oh my goodness, some of the crazy things that we've seen some really crazy things. One story that I always love to tell is one of our virtual assistants was pregnant. She started having contractions. She wanted to stay and finish the day out for her customer. And so she jumps in a cab and she has her first baby in a cab on the way to the hospital. And like clients like, get out of here. What are you doing? Go to the hospital. And she's like, I just have this one thing to finish. And so it's just so cool to see the dedication of our virtual assistants and to see the impact that makes on our customers, and to see those two things like line up. It's fantastic.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge win-win. All right. Well, I'm sure we're going to continue the conversation offline. I got a bunch of stuff to talk to you about, but appreciate having you on, man. And thanks for your time today. Bunch of gold nuggets in here. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure.